figure that out?
No, that's why I was just happy that it was working this time. Good.
I'm glad not on there, all right.
Fish?
No changes. We won't have a phase 2A. No phase 2A paperclip.
Thank you. So what'd you want?
Perfect time to start a meeting, radio test.
Well, then we know it's supposed to be about 6:30.
How long does it take?
Oh, it's just like, what did you write?
It's almost over. Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
Arlington or Brooklyn County.
I was thinking I'd let them have their 30 seconds.
Okay, they're done.
Okay. All right, now that radio testing is done, it's 6:32, and I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. There is one change, that is the elimination of phase 2A pay request. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Jeremy, second by Joel. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comments?
Looks like everybody got a
Yeah,
job.
no public? Okay,
I think they're all down to school.
yes, yeah. So, all right, so,
The agenda. Did you approve the agenda?
yeah,
Oh, you
We
did.
just,
Oh, I thought you called the meeting order. I apologize. My
oh,
bad.
yeah. It
no, we
was
don't have to go that.
chair
Yep.
neutral, yeah. Okay, joint meeting of the zoning board and city council. And with that, Todd, you're gonna give us a
Yeah,
nice
I'm
brief
gonna kind of
update?
give you a little bit of an idea of what we've been working on for a while and talk about the ordinance amendments kind of at the 5,000-foot level and talk a little bit about process going forward and then to see if anybody has questions. And so if you can recall, it's just like back in October, we sat down and we said, we need to take a look at your zoning regulations. The last time we had done some of this work, 2007, I think, was probably the last major update. 2003 was a little bit before that. Was it 3 already? God, seems fast. Well, anyway, the Planning Commission and I and Brenda been meeting several times over the last several months. And we've kind of walked through the ordinance page by page. What I did is I brought examples of what other communities similar in size to Lake Preston, what they've been dealing with as far as different types of development issues. Talked a little bit about where in the last 20 odd years, changes in state law and case law have come into play, why we need to update the rules and regulations. So I'm just going to start and talk a little bit about what's in your ordinance and where we kind of made some changes, and then we'll kind of take it piece by piece. This will be as long as you want, depending on how many questions you have, or as short as you want. But your ordinance is based on 5 separate articles. General regulations, district regulations, the administration of the ordinance, supplemental regulations, and definitions, right? Let's see if I can make this work. So the first 6 pages of the ordinance is the general provisions. This is pretty much straightforward things. It's a lot of boilerplate information. It's the title of the ordinance, where your rules apply, why do we have zoning, and then there are 2 changes that I think are substantive in this first section. Has to do with violation and how we go about changing the zoning map. So I'm just going to talk very quickly. Your ordinance, Lake Preston's ordinance, only applies to the city limits. We don't have the authority to zone outside of city limits. That's the county. But the good news is I'm starting tomorrow, meeting with Kingsbury County for the next several months. We're gonna be updating their zoning regulations, and the big thing that I hope that comes out of that conversation is that the county doesn't try to approve things on the periphery of Lake Preston that screws up the long-term development of Lake Preston. So that's the conversation that I have with them. But in this section of the ordinance, we've actually updated the violation and penalty section. Currently, in your ordinance, it says if I violate the zoning regulations, it's a $200 fine and 30 days in jail. But there's been a change in state law that now you can fine, or if you go to court, $500 is the fine, and 30 days in jail. Like I told the planning commission, I've been doing the gig for about 35 years. I've only known one guy to go to jail for violating the zoning ordinance. I've seen judges make people tear houses down and move houses and those types of things for violating zoning regulation. The only guy I went to jail is he kind of aggravated the judge, and that's was probably more of that than it was the zoning regulation. The other thing we also did here in this in the violation section is we included an administrative penalty. So to collect that $500, you're gonna have to go to court, you're gonna have to have an attorney, and you probably, if you break even on legal costs, it's a wash. But what we wanna do here is when we're all said and done, we're gonna take a look at your fee structure, adjust your fee structure so it's comparable to what maybe other communities are charging. And then if, say, somebody starts building without getting a building permit, well, rather than going to court on that, we'll charge an administrative fee. So say the building permit was $100. If you don't get my building permit within a week after saying, hey, you started, it's gonna cost you $200. And if I catch that, I ain't gonna do it. Well, you wait 2 weeks, now it's gonna cost you $400 for that building permit. And so, and then after that, if you pay it, we still might take you to court and get another $500 out of the deal too. So again, trying to get people's attention that, you know, just come in, talk to the staff, talk to the planning and zoning board, follow the rules. That's all we're trying to do. So that was the one big thing changing there. And then the other changes has to do with the zoning map. The way your current ordinance is written is that if I was to rezone a piece of property today, and we just write the change on the map, when I go adopt the new map, I gotta go through a whole new ordinance process, which seems redundant. So we basically said that if we rezone a piece of property by ordinance today, and 2 years from now, we update the map, we can just update the map by resolution. Because whenever you change a zoning, you have to write lot 3, block 2, Jones Edition from R1 to C3 or whatever. And then once we get enough changes on the map, it makes sense to update the map, then we do that, and we can do it by resolution. So not a lot of major issues with that, nothing really overly controversial in that section. Article 3, which is on pages 73 to 90. Here, this is the administration of the ordinance. This is how do I get a building permit? How do I apply for a variance? How do I apply for a conditional use permit? How do I ask to rezone my property? What's the process? And this is all dictated by state law, right? The big thing to remember here is we don't have a lot of wiggle on a lot of this. I think a couple things that we have some discretion over was how long a building permit's good for. Your current rules say it's only good for, I gotta get started in 90 days. Well, what if I pull my permit in December and I don't plan on working till May? Well, then I'd have to come back and buy another building permit. So we're recommending 6 months to get started once you pull it, and then get another 6-month extension. The planning commission or Brenda can just extend. So I've got a year to get started on my project. And so that's kind of one thing that we wanted to do with that. The other things that are in there talks a little bit just about what's the steps and updating the proper steps to rezone your property, to get a variance, to get a conditional use. And there's a lot of words here. What we'll end up doing is when it gets adopted, we'll create a new administrative manual with this kind of like a checklist, steps 1 through 10. I don't get to 10, I don't get a building permit, right? And so that's going to help Brenda in helping and the planning board in administrating the ordinance. So we'll have it very clear, our applications will be updated. So it makes it very clear of the information that we're going to need in order to issue a building permit. I'm not gonna go through a lot of this in here because like I said, it's just basically state law that's been regurgitated into your ordinance. And everything in here, Wilkinson is blessed in DeSmit and he's blessed in Arlington and in the last year. So he's very familiar with how we go about that. So I don't think he'll have any issues. The next section that I'm not gonna talk a lot about is pages 127 to 153. That's your definition section. And we've really expanded definitions. You say there's a lot of color, a lot of shaded in your document, but everything in here, the easiest way to administer the ordinance or for people to understand the ordinance is to understand what the words mean. And so somebody says, I want to put a shop house, or I want to put up a fence, or I want to put up a kennel. What do we mean by that? Oh, look up the word. Yep, that's not what you want to do? Yep, okay. So I know what it's defined as. Where in the ordinance does it allow me to do that? Well, Brenda can then search for kennel. Kennel is up, oh, I can do that in the ag zone as a permitted use, or maybe it's in the residential zone. Is it a commercial kennel? Is it just a regular kennel? So it kind of just helps us starting the process. I always, when I'm training new zoning officials, I always just basically tell them, I said, you know, somebody wants to do something, first thing I do is I look up, is it even, how's it defined? And then is it even allowed anywhere in the ordinance? Once we get those first two steps, then it gets a lot easier. So my guidance to you is to just review these definitions and the administration and the general provisions. You can read through them really quick. And if they don't make sense to you, then you have to let us know. But generally, I think they're pretty straightforward. All right, so I'm gonna then jump to pages 91 to 126. And this is where we might start having some conversation. Pages 91 to 126, this is the section of the ordinance that we call supplemental regulations, right? These deal with specific topics, like fences, like parking, accessory buildings. What's an accessory building? Well, if my house is the principal dwelling, principal use on the property, the gazebo, the swimming pool, the shed, the detached garage, those are all accessory buildings. So I have regulations on that. Signs, how do we deal with signs in town? Manufactured homes, trailer houses, moving buildings in and out of town, home occupations, shop style dwellings. We don't have any rules, we put some rules together on that. Chickens, we didn't put any rules about campgrounds in there, but if we want to, we still can. But we talked a little bit about that. You know, adult uses. Somebody will say, well, why the heck we have adult use regulations in there, Todd? We don't want to see that. Some people might want to see that. But basically what we've done is, I'll talk just briefly about that. There's about 6 or 7 pages on adult uses. Why is that? Well, the Supreme Court has basically said that people have the right to the freedom of speech. And freedom of speech can take many forms. And one of those forms where freedom of speech is out there is the ability to express yourself with or without clothing. And so you have to allow for opportunities to do that. So we're going to say in certain zones you can have an adult use. But the way the adult use language is set up in here, I'm never going to make a nickel running that business because there's no alcohol. It's as bright as this room right here. Those people expressing their free speech rights don't receive tips from anybody listening to their speech. Those things right there just does not make it economically feasible that somebody would end up doing it. I wrote these rules back in 2004 based upon a Supreme Court case and some things in Illinois, and no one's ever opened ones yet. So I'm not worried about it, but I think rather than getting sued on somebody's, I come to town and say, I'm gonna open up a juice bar and everybody can take the clothes off and express themselves. If we didn't have a place for me to do that in town here, that's called exclusionary. and then that gets you in trouble. So we're just trying to plug that hole with the 6-page rules. But we talked a little bit about fences. I thought what we tried to do is we didn't really change a whole lot of fence rules as far as setbacks, but we put pictures in the book so you can see what we mean as far as how fences can be put in town. And then you compare what it looks like with the little table. So it'd be really easy for people to figure out where I can put a fence and what kind of a fence and how tall a fence, and can it be a chain link or is it solid wood fence? So we did a lot with that. We spent time talking about accessory buildings, and not so much about what an accessory building is, but if I've got an accessory building like a detached garage, can I put steel on it? How tall are the sidewalls? What are we okay with automatically just allowing? But under what circumstances do we want the neighbors to sign off? So we did spend some time on that. So for example, we talked about an unattached or a detached garage. We're basically saying there that you can have up to 14 square feet, or 14-foot sidewalls, automatically. You can have a 14-foot sidewall. I want to be bigger than 14 feet. I have to ask my neighbor, have them sign it. And then I can go up as high as 16-foot sidewalls, like in a residential zone, for example. The other one, we also talked about siding. Well, we don't want, and when I say we, I'm talking about the zoning board, we were talking about this, but let's say I can't have corrugated Quonset siding on my residential detached garage. But I can have certain types of steel siding, like a batten board type of siding would be fine. If I want to put up Menard's pole barn sheet vertical siding on that, that might require a neighbor to sign off on putting red barn siding on the side of my detached garage, for example. We also talked a little bit on, and why is it important to talk about steel siding in residential neighborhoods? A lot of it had to deal with, as we were starting to talk about shop houses, whether or not shop houses can be in or be out or under what circumstances. And so we wrote a bunch of regulations on shop houses. And again, I'm not going to spend time rehashing what we put in there. And you need to look at those sections and ask me why did we do this, or that's kind of how I would like to approach this. We updated the sign codes as far as talking about how big of a sign can I have in a residential zone and a commercial zone, and what signs are automatically approved. And a lot of it's going to be based upon how much lot width do I have, or how much frontage do I have on the number of signs I can be allowed. How do we handle portable signs? How do we handle electronic messaging signs? We didn't get it overly complicated. There's a couple pages of rules and regulations, just that so people have some direction. We took a look at your existing parking regulations, especially like in residential neighborhoods. Where can I park my car? Where can I park my 4x4 or my side-by-side? Or where can I park my camper? Where can I park my fish house and my jet ski trailer? And the big thing that came out of those conversations is that we don't want them parked in the front yard in front of the picture window. They're okay on the driveway. They're even okay off to the side of the driveway between the lot lines. They're okay in the back, in the rear yard. And what we did is we put a picture where we're okay with that sort of thing for parking those things. Can I park my camper in the front in the front yard? Well, if we're not loading it, but then we want it either on the street or on your driveway or what have you. So we gave some guidance on parking regulations. Other manufactured homes, you're not allowed to bring a trailer house in a town that's older than 10 years old. We've settled at 20 years, just because when these rules were written in 2003, that was a 1993 trailer, it was 10 years. There's been a lot of changes in how manufactured homes are constructed. A lot of them are 2x12 joists, and they got 2x4 sidewalls. They're built better than they were, and heck, you can spend a lot of money just on a manufactured home. So that was something that was new and interesting that we looked at adding as far as getting some flexibility there. Again, also the hope for to help with affordable housing. We talked just a little bit about how you go about moving a building in and out of town. What's required, if it's not a brand new building I'm moving into town, neighbors get a little say so, they get a right, they can sign off on that. We also talked about if I'm moving a building out of town. Big thing there, we want to make sure is whoever moves that building out of town, they get their permits, but they gotta regrade the lot, push the basement or something, so, you can still reuse that property. So there's a bunch of language about adult uses. We talked about caretakers, watchmen's quarters, people that maybe own commercial property here in town, but they do the businesses in the front half of the building and the back half of the building, maybe they're living in it, kind of back like they used to be in the old days. Just giving opportunities for that to happen because current regulations don't have that in there. We talked about shop style dwellings. We talked about generally, basically okay. We talked about that the shop style dwelling still has to be this. It can't be more shop than there is house. So, for example, if I've got 60 by 40 building and 2,400 square feet, right? We're saying that the shop has to be no more than 50% of the residential. So maybe on the one half, maybe I only got a 20 by 40, it's 800 square feet, but I got 2 stories on that end. So I've got 1,600 square feet. Well, then that makes the shop would be 1,600 feet. I mean, it's going to vary depending on which living quarters you have in there. We talked a little bit about shop style dwellings having 2 roof lines. So when I drive by it, it doesn't look like a hog barn when I'm driving by it. It's got two different roof lines. Those are some of the things that we talked about in there. We just talked about that this is supposed to be for people that are living here. It's not meant to be subbed out and signed out. If it's my house and my shop, I'm not subletting the shop out to somebody else while I live in the residential portion of the shop house. We talked about having a 5/8" firewall between the shop and the living quarters as a building code issue. We just talked about, what else is interesting? Somebody's, I'm living in it, I should be living in it at least 6 months out of the year. We have a new thing we call extended home occupations that's in here. So say, if I get a home occupation, that means I'm doing the business in the house, cutting hair, teaching guitar lessons, doing web design, whatever. We also are saying, but what if I want to fix lawnmowers in the garage, or do some woodworking, or maybe spot welding some stuff, and I want to have my business, but it's in the detached garage. We call that an extended home occupation. Regular home occupation is just me and my family working there. An extended home occupation could be me and a hired guy could work in that building, fixing cars. But it's a conditional use, so we have a hearing on it. And the purpose of that hearing is going to be like, well, Todd wants to fix cars. Okay, well, how many stalls is your garage? 2. Okay, you can never have more than 2 cars. Well, I'm working on them. That might be a condition. I gotta know where the solvents and the oils and the grease and the gas is in case we need to fight a fire there. We know which side of the building we want to avoid, coming on something like that. Todd, you can't be working on race cars after 8 o'clock on school night or what have you. Those are the conditions that you can place on those types of things. We incorporated your existing marijuana cannabis dispensary rules into your zoning regulations, and we adjusted the chicken regulations here in town, making them a little bit more clear than what they currently are. Talked about the type of buildings that they can be, how many hens, those things don't really change, but more about the chicken coop and how far it's spaced away from people's bedroom windows and things like that. And so those were kind of at a very high level. Those are the things that we talked about. And there are some changes in the rules, but I think most of them, based on the conversations, it talked about it's kind of like how we're doing things right now. It's just we need the rules written down to justify when we say yes, when we say no, and under what circumstances. So And then I'm gonna stop there for just a second. Did anybody have any questions about wanting a deeper dive on any of those things I talked about on the supplemental regulations? A lot of it, as you know, I'm relying on you to read it. I rely that once we get this new car in the driveway, we'll take it out for a ride, and if the alignment is a little bit off, well, then we'll fix it at that point. But I'm basing everything that I've put down on here was on the conversation of the planning board, who generally has they're more involved on a day-to-day basis than the city council is. They here in Lake Preston, that's how you guys have set it up. And I think I've generally hit what we've been talking about there. The last section of the ordinance.
I did have a couple.
Yes, ma'am.
To help me get a visual, please, how tall is a typical camper?
You have to have 16 feet to get a camper. Most
If you have
campers.
14 feet, it's level, and I put scissor rafters in, I can probably get it tight. I mean, I got a couple inches.
Okay.
13.6 is what most stay under for bridges. and
So,
stuff.
yeah,
Okay.
but it gets tight. I mean, it's,
Okay.
even with those sidewalls and scissors,
Yeah.
I mean, if I got a big air conditioning unit, sometimes it makes,
Yeah,
I was
we're
just wondering, with the
50.
14-foot sidewalls, how accommodating is that for people who want to park
you're gonna-
campers?
it'll get most of what you're trying to do. I
on
think.
most residential ones, there's gonna be some bigger fifth wheels.
There might be some bigger fifth wheels that might have a hard time,
Okay.
but that way, but what we're saying is that if I have a house, there's no regulation on the sidewall of my attached garage in my house, right? Because it's, I can have a 60, I mean, it could be 30, I don't have any living quarters above there, I can just drive the thing in there.
Mhm.
If it's attached, if it's detached,
Okay,
we're saying they're 14 foot. If I need more than that, I go talk to my neighbors, because
Yep.
14-foot sidewalls on a 20 by 30 building starts to
That's
become.
substantial.
That becomes an imposing structure,
Yeah,
and the neighbors maybe would want a little bit to say, and I think that was the conversation we had.
yeah, I
Visualizing things, that's kind of,
Yeah.
and I think there's probably a few places in town where there are some 14-foot sidewalls. Driving around town, I kind of looked, there's a few.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing anything that jumped out at me as anything much bigger.
I don't know what Tom's new garage is down there.
No more than 14, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mine-
when
mine's
I drove
only
through
10
town, I
foot.
didn't really see a whole lot that jumped out. I've been in towns where I've seen 18-foot sidewalls in some residential zones, and it just really jumps out at you. But then again, if the neighbors are okay with it, I've evolved a lot in my years doing this job. If somebody wants to do something, and if their neighbors are okay with it, then as the neighbor sells his house or tries to sell the house, that's on them. I think what it does sometimes too, it gets neighbors to talk to each other a little bit too about what they want to do. Good question though.
On page 120, number 5, it says the storage and garage area must be completely within the enclosed building. What are instances of that being outside of the enclosed building, or where is
Sorry, what
that?
page are you on?
120,
yeah, item number 5.
yep.
The storage area or garage area must be completely within the enclosed building. So what we're meaning by that, make sure I got it square. So if I'm building this,
Mhm.
it doesn't count a carport.
Oh, carport, okay,
on the
okay.
side.
Thank you.
If that makes sense?
Yep. That's what I wondered, if they were talking about lean-to or carport.
Yeah, so it's so like I say, if I want to get a carport and I want to work, but the carport doesn't count towards, the comparison of the 50/50.
Okay, yep, okay.
Right.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So with regard to extended home occupation, as in people who operate a business outside home, inside their home, because we already have some inner community, what's the grandfathered in
So-
/
If I'm doing a business right now inside my home, currently, in some of your rules, it's a conditional use, we've made that a permitted use. So if I'm doing something where I'm using less than 25% of my living room, maybe I'm running a daycare, maybe I'm, like I say, I'm providing legal services, web design, teaching music lessons, cutting hair,
Right.
making quilts, whatever. Those things are automatically permitted. I don't need to come and talk and ask permission to do any of that. I just start my business. As long as I don't put a sign bigger than what our requirement is,
Okay.
that's the thing. If I'm doing a business in, my outbuilding or my garage, my detached garage, and we've just always said, that's fine, it's a home occupation, we never took care of it, it's grandfathered, it's allowed to move on. But the first time, I need to get a building permit to add a deck onto my house, I then have to make sure everything's in conformance. So then at that point in time, I would say, well, you want a deck, or you want to add onto your house, we're gonna address your home occupation. Or if somebody starts making a complaint, if somebody makes a complaint because, my God, he's got, stack of tires in the backyard, it's a nuisance thing, that gives us enough basis. You need to come in and let's just do it right. So we'll come in there. So if that happens, I expect Brenda to call our office to help you on how that works. But generally, anything, it's a pretty good segue. We were gonna start talking about grandfathered uses. That's in Article 2 of your regulations. So this pages 7 through 72, probably what people are most interested in. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so in 4.17.
Give me a page. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you got it on your phone. I'm sorry. I'll find it. Page 417, which one is, okay, connection to sanitary sewer?
Right, so Cedric and I were just talking about how we might need to have that to be like 700 to 900 feet.
State law is 400.
Oh, state law.
All we're saying there is that nobody can build, construct, or maintain to be caused, built, or struck any septic tank system on any lot within the city. All existing septic tanks are grandfathered, so if you got it, they're grandfathered. And all structures within 400 feet of an existing sanitary sewer system shall be connected at the landowner's cost. That was basically written by Todd Williams when I was over, and we were over at DeSmet a couple years ago.
What if there's a structure that is going to be put up that's further than 400 feet from the existing?
Then they're gonna have to probably use a sealed holding tank. There's no septic tanks, and then it'll be pumped out every month. So it's more expensive for them to do that, but that's the deal. What's in the city limits you're talking about?
You're talking the
Yeah, the Otter Tail.
Otter Tail lot building.
That's about 900 feet from the city sewer main. So is it the developer's cost to get the sewer out there, or is it?
Under your current subdivision regulations, that is.
That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, the way it used to be back in the day, cities would run water, sewer, streets to encourage development. It's too goddamn expensive to do that anymore. You'll never get your money back, at least in maybe your grandkids' lifetime. So more often than not, what ends up happening is those costs are borne by the developer. Cities can participate using discretionary tax formulas, using tax financing, maybe going halvesies on you. There's ways that you can do it to encourage it. And it's also why it's important to grow concentrically like the rings of a tree, so you're not leapfrogging development and sticking something 900 feet outside of adjacent. That building should be adjacent to city limits. It should be in your industrial park or wherever you've got existing infrastructure. That's the planner response to it. Then there's also, okay, well, we don't want things to go away, but the question is, what's that building going to be paying for taxes over the period of time? Does it open up more, development opportunities? Yeah, probably. But who's the bank in this situation? Is it the person? Is it everybody else living in town? Are they gonna see that benefit by increased property values going, or increased development, which then has more property tax assessed throughout town, which means my taxes go down over time? That's sometimes a hard apple to sell to somebody. But statutorily, I can't make you hook up unless it's within 400 feet. But we also said that you can't put a mound system, you can't put a septic tank in town either, because that's not fair to everybody else. It has to pay for all of this all the streets that you guys have got dug up here for the next 30 years, right? Everybody's sewer bills are going to pay for that. So the only solution in that situation would be is they got to put a sealed holding tank in.
Are they trying to get a TIF deal out there though?
No,
I thought someplace in town they were trying to get it.
Down there.
that was,
We were talking up there.
Yeah. and that isn't happening either.
What is this built, what's being built?
Otter Tail's
Otter Tail.
building a shop.
A shop?
Out on the airport land.
Because it's in city limits, because you guys got it in city limits, it's zone industrial or whatever it is out there. But that's the issue. You can start letting people do stuff out there, but you're not in any position to be doing that because you don't have the infrastructure to support the development. But today, your current rules say all structures for human habitation, commercial, industrial shall be connected to the city's sanitary sewer system. So the rule isn't any different than it is what we've had on the books forever. It's just, all we did is we added a segment in there following state law that says we can require you to hook up at 400 feet at your cost. So the other question could be is that maybe the city some days goes, well, we'll go 500, you're gonna do the other 400 on your own. But then that's the question, do you have money set aside to open up almost 2 blocks of sewer to get to them? And if you do, then maybe that opens up more opportunities. I mean, so it's an investment that you have to look at the numbers to see if it works for you. Good question, though. What was the other one?
So 2.9.6.
We haven't even gotten Article 2 yet. But hang on, was there any more in 4?
No.
2.9.6. 09?
Yeah. So we're just looking at the sewage and liquid waste. Like, we'd like to probably add something in there about blood.
209. What number?
Page 46,
Page 47?
6,
46, I'm sorry.
I think.
Well, right now, there would be you don't allow for processing of animals in town.
So in the past, we almost had a walker come down.
Right.
And so then,
So let's just talk about that right now. We had a conversation about, we had this conversation about the industrial district. So I'm gonna just talk about page 43. Currently, in your current rules, you have no permitted uses in the industrial zone. That means everything I gotta come ask pretty please. It's not a good way to promote economic development and industrial development. You should have a few things that would just normally say, if this is zoned industrial, this is the uses that we're generally okay with. So we added, substations, motor freight, storage plants, woodworking, light manufacturing, automobile body repair, cannabis, storage units, things that would normally you would see in an industrial zone. This makes sense to say, you're gonna make me, pay $250 and ask pretty please to let me put up a storage shed out there. It's a zone industrial. So we talked about that. And then but then we said, well, let's look at the conditional uses that you have on the books right now. And a lot of those things that we had as conditional uses, we moved them up to permitted uses. But there were some things we talked about that the board was saying, we want to encourage junkyards or salvage yards anywhere in town. So they said no. We want a crematory, a slaughterhouse, explosive manufacturing, fertilizer soap manufacturing, incineration of garbage, dead animals, fat, refuse, rendering tanning of leather, livestock sales or auction barns. We went through all those uses and the board basically said, why are we encouraging any of that in town? Now, if that's something that we need to pivot from, those what I call those are heavy industrial uses, which means you should have adequate water and sanitary sewer facilities. And while you're sticking a ton of money into this community, I'm not exactly sure that's what you're really wanting to spend sewer capacity on, those types of things. Now, if somebody wanted to come up and open up a slaughterhouse or a butcher shop or something along those lines, it's allowed currently as a conditional use, but based on our conversation, the planning commission didn't think that was prudent at this time. If somebody wanted to, well, let's just say somebody wanted to go open up, I'm gonna 8 cows and 10 deer a week or whatever I'm gonna do out there. They gotta go to the state, the animal board, and at the animal board, they end up having to get a permit from them on how you get rid of blood and guts and goo and hair and bones and stuff like that. Most communities you're not allowed to commingle those things into a public sanitary sewer system. So there would be on-site storage, or it'd have to be pre-treated before it actually went into the sewer system. I don't recommend pre-treatment. I would recommend that you just have a tank where all that stuff would go, and then the rendering company out of Mitchell that would come and they would take it down to their facility and process it through there. The question is, we could add, I'm not sure if you want to, slaughterhouse to me is a Morels, right? Or Smithfield or something like that. If you want to say we're okay with a butcher shop where it's, in the industrial zone and we can add that as a separate use and put some specific language in there for that. If I go to Clark or I go to Watertown, but generally what we mean by a butcher shop is I'm not killing on site.
Right.
I'm bringing it in either as box beef or carcass that's get hung. We're not doing on-site killing because that brings up, well, then I got cow crap and I got other stuff I got to deal with. And so a butcher shop is that. It handles dead critters already. Slaughterhouses, we're killing them and cutting them up right there. So are you okay with like a butcher type facility, but not a slaughterhouse, or what do you guys want to do with that?
Yeah, I guess, given beef prices and, I hate to close the door on opportunity for an actual butcher shop.
Okay,
I
well,
think the market will be swinging more toward localized
it's about a
access.
quarter beef today.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no morels. That's
Right.
what the grocery store does now, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Yeah, they make it, you bring in box cuts or you bring in a carcass and then they, whether it's.
Well, anytime you
You
got
make
a
big piece of smoke.
And then they just-
anytime you slaughter a carcass and sell it, you can't because it has to be federally inspected.
Yeah.
So that kind of puts a limit on a lot of things.
But so nothing like the Elkin Locker or something along those lines where you can bring stuff in and get it, nothing like that, you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
But if you take something in there, if it's slaughtered for you, then it doesn't have to be federally inspected.
Oh, fair enough.
So
Okay. Like a deer.
if
Right.
John Q. Public brings in a steer and has it butchered and they
He's
take
picking it
that
up
back
just
out,
for
then it
him.
doesn't
And it's
have,
mine,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's not co-mingled
it doesn't
with
have to be
somebody else's
federally
stuff.
Oh,
inspected.
Yeah,
But
they're just performing a service then.
yeah, if they turn around and sell it to the public, then it all has to be federally
Oh,
inspected.
okay.
Sure, makes sense.
Oh, we'll add that, we can change that,
Nobody,
we can change that, and that's common, is when you see the word slaughterhouse, all I can think of is John Morels, and I know that's not what you want in your town.
Right.
Good question, good point, but yeah, what we would end up saying there, as long as we're not killing them on the floor, then I don't worry about the blood and stuff. If I'm taking boxed beef coming in from Kansas City and I'm cutting it up into steaks and stuff, I still gotta find a way to get rid of that stuff, but that becomes an animal board issue with the state. that was our, so let me just back up. What was your other one before you had one more you said?
It was just pertaining to me, really, after I do like variances and like conditional use permits and things, like everyone comes in and they're like, well, did they get the signatures?
But we're not doing the signatures anymore though. Remember, we had this conversation. We'll pivot there. So your zoning regulations, are set within a district, you have permitted uses. If it's listed and I meet all my setbacks, I can get a permit, lickety split. Maybe a day or two, turn around. If it's listed as a conditional use, with changes in case law and how we approach that anymore is if we listed it as a conditional use, we're generally okay with it. The purpose of the public hearing and notifying the neighbors is to say, what can we do to mitigate the impact of that use on your property? Because we're gonna say yes to this. So it gets back to that home occupation. Well, I'd like to see a fence. I don't want to see the damn thing. Okay, well, it might be a condition. You're gonna put up a fence. Or if I'm gonna have the lights gotta be downward shaded. There's no noise requirements. It's the things that can be coming off that property that's gonna happen. But if we're not comfortable listing the use, then we probably aren't comfortable. Then maybe it shouldn't even be in that zoning district. And so that's why you need to really look at these uses and say, well, I don't know if we should have that. And if I'm not going to, I can't issue a conditional use permit to you on one side of town, and just because your neighbors say it's okay, and I come over here on my side of town as a conditional use, and there's nothing different. It's just, I pissed all my neighbors off. And so it's an equal protection issue. So if we're not comfortable with this specific use in this residential zone anywhere, then we shouldn't allow it. Or if we are going to allow it, we're only allowed under special circumstances, and that's our special permitted use. There, we're just gonna say, it's allowed, but you gotta do these 17 things. The shop house, for example, we put those in there, or certain signs. If I follow my sign regulations, I can do it. But
Privacy fence or
yeah, I mean,
what
but
have you.
what we're basically saying is that if I list something in the ordinance, we're generally okay with it. It's permitted as a conditional use, as a special permitted use. I just might have to have, the neighbors get to come and they get to bitch about why they don't like it. But in the end, we're saying, well, we generally think it can be anywhere in town. If we can't think it, otherwise we need to then develop more residential zones and be very specific where we want to have certain things. And then in a small town, that gets to be a lot of us versus them sort of things. And that doesn't do anything good for you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just go back to Article 2. Starts on page 7. We've already talked about the industrial zone. But the big thing that starts the first few pages, it talks about what we call legal non-conforming uses. That's what everybody thinks of as grandfather, right? And so anything that's on the ground today that doesn't meet the new zoning rules is grandfathered. And grandfathered means I can sell it to Joe, and Joe can sell it to you, and it can keep going on forever until God comes in and smites it out. Wind, hail, locusts, whatever. The downside of having a non-conforming use is that you're not allowed to expand it, which means, oh God, I'd like to put a new deck on or something like that. Well, generally, we would say no. We did do something a little bit different though. We added a thing called non-standard uses. So let's say the front of the house is 2 feet too close to the road. But I want to get a building permit to add a deck on the back of the house, which would conform with everything else in the ordinance. We're saying, okay, you can do that. It's common sense. It allows people to, but I can't build any closer to the road. Maybe my house is a foot too close to the side yard. We're going to allow you to build in line with that, but we're not going to let you get any closer. So again, we try to allow some flexibility there, which isn't there. We talked about our zoning map, and it's up there and hopefully I got it right. But we went through the old zoning map, plus we took a look at things that have changed, and we had some ordinance development, and we tried to just create a zoning map that reflected what's really going on. And so by and large, if it's yellow, it's your R1 zone. We're probably gonna look at maybe changing some areas to R2 based upon multiple family dwellings. And we'll come back with that, where those areas should match up to. But the yellow is currently is residential. We're gonna maybe recommend some R2 zoning in there, just to allow some flexibility to match up with what we actually have on the ground. The blue is your commercial zone, the green is your highway commercial zone, and the red is your industrial zones. So we will have that as part of that. In the zoning district, you got all these different zones, and I'm just gonna really briefly talk about them. In the ag zone.
Todd?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry if I missed, what is the proposed map? Or because,
What we'll end up doing here is we'll have it done here by the end of this week.
okay,
There'll be like the areas out here where we have the new apartment housing.
right,
We'll probably zone that R2 because it's more dense than our some of that. So we did a land use survey, and there's a few residential uses that maybe, I don't want to spot zone residential zones, but if we take a half block here or a fourth of a block there, just to actually have zones like, here we got an R1 zone here, and that's where the apartments right down the street are. It's probably, I would either say we could either change that to a commercial zone and we allow apartments in the commercial zone, or I'd make that an R2 zone. It makes more sense. It's a transition zone to other, it's not gonna hurt anybody, but it's just
Right.
gonna be better reflective of what's actually on the ground.
okay,
So I don't have that. I will have that
Yep.
before we go to public hearing on this, but
okay.
that's kind of where we're looking at, wanting to come back
That
with that.
field at the very bottom there, that's R1,
Yes, all of this is zoned.
if that's a field, like,
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I would zone that agricultural until I see the design and what that's gonna be. So it's currently zoned, that's what it's currently zoned right now. You've got some of that. I don't have a problem having, this is zone highway commercial under the old map. I'm not exactly sure that's what you really want. I was thinking maybe you wanted more of an industrial zone out here, right? And so the other question is, do we zone it industrial without having any sort of layout or design work done out there? It's gonna be industrial. I don't think we're gonna want, I don't know, and some of this here, we just got,
that square there, that's where, to the
Yeah.
left of that is where Otter Tail was gonna go, is out that way, so that would.
so to me, it's just, we just need to, I'm fine with leaving a lot of this agriculture here, where the old runway is probably fine. I don't wanna be zoning things too far ahead of development, because all of a sudden everybody says, well, shit, I can go build out here. Well, we don't have any water or sewer out there, so sometimes it's best to keep things agriculturally zoned until you're ready for development,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna come back with some proposed changes. there.
Okay, the thing that jumped out at me is my neighbor, the bait shop and motel still shows,
Is that,
that's still showing.
here's the school.
Yep,
Highway
it's-
commercial,
Yeah, it's,
This
Yeah,
right
right
here?
here.
Yeah, right there.
yeah,
We gotta, that just needs to be green.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
because we're gonna change that with a hotel and bait shop to green.
yeah.
Yep, I agree. Yeah,
yeah, and kitty corner across the street is commercial, so,
yeah, I've got a land use map that shows me that some things are blue, and if it's blue, I either have to change it to blue or green or red, so.
all right,
But yeah, we'll have that, and so, we'll talk about that at the very end of the.
Thank you.
Yep, good questions. In the ag zone, there's not a whole lot of changes, to that. We talked about adding shop style dwellings as a permitted use, some steel siding opportunities. We added intermodal shipping containers to be out there as a conditional use. Commercial stables, kennels, extended home occupations. We did remove mining. That was a discussion that, did we want to open up any gravel pits inside the city limits? We didn't have any, and the board thought maybe we should just walk away from that. Currently, I could ask that right now, and if we're going down this road of just listed in the rule book, then I should be able to do it with or without conditions. And so that was one of the things we talked about. The R1 zone, which is primarily most of the residential zone in the community, We added home occupations as an accessory use, so I don't have to come ask for special permission. Extended home occupations I do, but not a regular home occupation. We've also came up with something called Type B modular homes. And this is a discussion item, it's basically tiny houses is what we came up with. And we made tiny houses, which are basically, I have to go back and take a look at what the rules were again. I can't remember off the top of my head. Had to be at least 400 square foot. Because right now, if I bring a house in, if it's modular, it's got to be at least 800 or 1,000 square feet. If it's a trailer house, it's got to be at least 700 square feet. But we know that there are some opportunities for maybe some tiny homes at that 400 square foot. We're saying, it's got to be 400, no less than 400 square feet. But the big thing here on that is it's a lot of the same rules as the regular modular home, but there's a sign off by the neighbors. The neighbors get a say so on whether or not I can have a tiny house next door to them. I think that's the biggest change. Was that, Dave, when we were talking about that?
Yep.
So but that's something new. Is that section of tiny house? I want to pull that up here just so I don't want to mislead you. The rules for tiny houses would be okay, it's on page 106 if you want to look on your at home. But tiny B model, we call them a tiny home, shall have less than 400 square feet excluding the loft, shall meet uniform building codes, shall be placed on a permanent foundation, shall not have running gear or a hitch. So it's not like just me towing it in on on wheels and leaving it there. Has to have siding and roofing material on that. And then we put it as a special permitted use, which requires the signatures of the adjoining property owners. So that's what we did there. That's a little something, that's new, that you're the first one I've ever done that. But we do know that this, and especially in your community with some of the recreational things that are going on in the area, and maybe it's it's an opportunity. Maybe having something like that as opposed to somebody just renting out a house that could be used for somebody living year round. It's maybe another way of looking at it. We did in the R2 zone, basically R2 zone is just like the R1, except in the R1 zone, we're limiting apartments to an 8-plex. In the R1, I want to be more than an 8-plex, it has to be zoned R2. That's the main reason. That's some of that, and also in the R2 zone, you currently allow for a manufactured home park or a trailer park. Those are the main differences between R1 and R2 as far as the types of uses allowed. Our central commercial district, which is basically Main Street, right? There, we were talking about, we've added funeral homes, hotels, bed and breakfast, daycare centers to that use. Conditional use permits, we've added light manufacturing, gas stations, added light intermodal shipping containers, on and off sell liquor, and adding caretaker facilities. I said that twice, I'm sorry, it was going too fast. But in our highway commercial, I'm just gonna open that section up here because there's a lot of change. It's kind of like our industrial zone. The current highway commercial zone doesn't have any permitted uses. Everything is a conditional use. So again, that doesn't make a lot of sense if you're trying to promote commercial development in town. So a lot of the uses that were listed as conditional, we bumped them all up to permitted uses. A couple of things that we took out, but we'll probably bring back. It says food lockers, provided any slaughtering, killing be done indoors. Well, I think what I just heard, we'll just change that to our butcher shop language there. But most of the things that we talked about as conditional uses, we bumped them up to permitted because it doesn't make a lot of sense. We didn't look at really changing a lot of much uses when it comes to the yard requirements. Everybody felt that the setbacks were pretty much okay for a lot of our zoning districts. So that's what we've talked about as change. It's a lot to swallow for some of you that maybe are just seeing this for the first time. I want to give you a timeline of where we're looking at. In order to have all these new rules, the fastest we can probably do it is June 23rd, everything going into effect. So we're already 7 weeks into construction, or 8 weeks into construction season by then. So what does that look like? Well, we have our meeting tonight. We can post a public hearing notice for the 6th of May in the paper. We have to wait at least 10 days to have to make that work. So what we would do is, May 6th, we would publish the notice in the paper. On May 11th, you would just have on your agenda first reading. There's no discussion, there's no comment. You just have the first reading. And part of the reason for that is I'm out of state that day on other work activities. So on the 11th of May, you have first reading. Read the title of the ordinance, set the second reading date, no big deal. On the May 18th, I'd come here, provide any information that the public might have. We'll have the documents cleaned up a little bit from here because this is still about a relatively close to final draft. And then you guys could act on it that night on the 18th if you're all comfortable. Then under state law, we got to publish 2 notices of adoption in the paper once a week for 2 weeks. And 20 days after that, if it doesn't get referred, it goes into effect. So that's kind of the timeline that we're dealing with. And so we basically have between now and May 6th to get all the documents put together. You got till about the 4th of May to get any comments to Brenda. So I know I can change anything up until, but by the 6th of May, what we put on the notice, that's what's going to be on file at the city hall. We'll host this on our website so people can have a direct link to the map and to the documents. And then what happens is on May 11th, you have your first reading. I'm not here. May 18th, we come back. There may be some discussion. And if we make any substantive amendments that we're changing, the sky is green and the grass is blue, then guess what? We kick it down the road another week. So now it's the 30th of June before we're said and done. But it's not a complete deal breaker there. So my ask of you is to kind of go through this lot of reading, have a beer, sit down on the deck, half an hour before you'll be back, sleep 10 minutes, before you go to bed, whatever. Go through it. Get any comments to Brenda before, let's say the 4th of May. I'll get you the notice, Brenda, tomorrow. I'll talk to you, talk tomorrow. We'll get you the notice that needs to go in the paper on the 6th, which that means you usually have to get there the Friday before. Yep. And they publish Wednesday, right? The 6th. Yep. So we'll get that there, whatever the 1st of May, whatever that date is. We'll get that to the paper. I'll go in. The only thing I'm going to need from you is I'm going to need an ordinance number, 2026-01, whatever it is. Yep. And I'm also going to need, if you haven't done one yet, I need a planning commission resolution number because the planning commission will make a resolution number. I got the resolutions, I just need some numbers. Okay. So I'll talk to you tomorrow about that. And so when we get done with this, that gets us into June. What we'll do is I'll be sitting with the planning commission and maybe your development board, and we're going to develop your land use plan. And it's not rocket science. It's basically we're going to create a document to backfill why our rules the way they are. We'll identify areas of town where we should be encouraging residential, commercial, industrial development. Talk about how it should be staged. What's the basis? We want to be encouraging development. How and when and where. And so that'll be the backfill that we'll do, and we'll try to have all that stuff done by Labor Day. So that's kind of the plan for the rest of the summer. Questions or comments from me? Planning Commission's been great to work with. I just want City Council to know they've been very good. I talk at them, and then if they got a question, they'll tell me. So I usually take silence as they're okay with it. So anyway, I know you guys have other things on the agenda tonight, so I'll get out of your hair. And like I said, I know it's a task, and if we miss something, we can always fix it down the road, but the big thing is, it's been a long time, it's time.
Should it be addressed more, on a more regular basis? Say
I would basically.
5 years, 10 years?
My general rule of thumb is this, is you should be if there's a major change in state law that we think is detrimental, we'll call you and say, you need to change this, we'll call your state's attorney. I think it's probably good, at least, things don't move so fast around here, but I would say every 5 years, you should probably, 5 to 7 years, you should be talking about, well, why is this happening? Why isn't this happening? I should also talk about one last thing. We did talk a little bit about, VRBOs and Airbnbs, and what I think we would recommend you do is, rather than make it a zoning ordinance, you could write a licensing regulation. And in the licensing regulation, what it basically says that if I want to do this, I gotta pay a fee, it's an annual fee, to be a VRBO, Airbnb. Then you let those companies know that, they have to get a license, and then it's basically, the neighbors, are told what's happening. And if it becomes problematic and people are, crazy wild, and then we write it in there, it automatically renews unless this happens. That might be the way of handling that, as opposed to a zoning issue, because your zoning regulations say, I can't have more than 5 unrelated people living in a house at any time. And so most VRBOs, it's not that big of a deal if it's just, wife and me and the kids going someplace, but if it's me and 10 college buddies get together, then that's not technically allowed. So we can have some more conversations about that and that's something that can be done absent a zoning ordinance, but we can even, just a simple resolution to create a licensing program for that. It's kind of like how they do it in Deadwood and Sturgis. There's a little bit more complicated than what I'd want to do, but something to think about. Short-term rentals is actually what they call it, so. Okay, I'll get out of your hair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, much appreciated. It's a lot of work here.
You don't wanna hang out?
All right. Wasn't me, that's all I think.
Yeah. All right.
Is there anything I need to know about this summer? I need to convey anything to Mason or anything as far as what's going to happen this summer, or I think you're all good?
Yeah, I think we're all good. I know, Golly had reached out to me.
We are going to be doing a few things different this summer because we've added about another 100 projects, it seems like. We're going to be having all payrolls going to a separate new email, as opposed to some go to Mason, some go to Susie, some go, and it's like, it's just getting too confusing. And so what we'll end up doing here is, I think the plan is 1st of May, a little before May, we're gonna be sending out contacts with all the primes and everybody. If you want a payroll submitted, you need to submit it to this, and we'll talk about specific deadlines and those types of things. I think we're trying to make it so it works a little bit smoother
Definitely not bad.
going forward, but Mason's gonna be reaching out to
When
everybody
I
on this
owned the other
project, because
house,
what have we got?
it was still
Dozen
residential.
added this
but
year.
I paid
It's getting crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I
Okay.
don't know, I
like
need to get,
non-owner
I
occupied use.
don't know
Horrendous.
when they want to come out and do employee interviews again.
Well, that was the thing, we were just talking about that this week, and we do those, things are starting to roll in, and I know he's got some that he needs to get scheduled, to come on out.
Because I know Prunty will be done in town in like 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Okay, I'll let him know.
So I was gonna reach out to him
Well,
tomorrow.
I know he was, he was on vacation a week or so ago, and so he just got back, and we were just We just hired a person to do Davis Bacon for us for this summer.
Okay.
And they're gonna start the 1st of May. And so if there's something, he said he was gonna be reaching out to see if there's anything going on between now and then, so I'll let him know.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have 9 blocks down here in like 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, okay, that's cruising. All right, I'll let him know.
Yeah, he can give me a call.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
We'll give John a moment.
They've done you before him.
What's that?
Do we need a motion to approve these checks?
That's all right, you can check those.
They're-
They retired.
Yeah, but like,
Because I think it would be good in that section.
right, but we also
2.09,
approve all
sewage,
financial
liquid waste,
things
maybe a
every
little
month.
more specific.
Those go straight through payroll.
Like,
I mean, you got the oil
I was gonna
with
say, I
Otter
don't
Tail then, huh?
know that we ever see any of that.
No, it's in that brown folder.
How shiny is it too?
As far as any of the stuff we okay.
There's like a set
Yeah.
number, so much.
Well, I mean, if you put it in 600 feet, so their sewer service is only 200, what's 600 times 60?
And I put the resolution.
36,000?
Somewhere around there.
So, I mean, that's just to put the pipe in.
Oh, so
2
we'll get that.
structures, probably another
Is there
feet,
a-
just say 10,000. So,
upon review?
46,000 just for the pipe, and then there you go.
Yeah, it's due by
Perhaps
October
over top of it,
Oh,
what would the city accept as far as taking
No, I
ownership
really
over
don't.
that? It's gonna have to
Um,
be some sort of,
I just
I mean,
can't read it,
which means you're gonna have to
Right.
cross to
cause
the
I usually
21st.
read
to get
said
there.
Right,
resolutions.
That's why you would
So,
Approve
that lot
upon-
is a challenge
reviewing.
to get service to.
I don't know how kosher that is,
And I don't even know, they'll be close on grade. I mean, we did some rough
cause
numbers.
it's supposed to, like, for people to have an opportunity to review.
So the land and water grant?
Yeah.
So I have the resolution on here.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't get the resolution ready. Like, can they approve it upon review? And they review it tomorrow?
Do you know what resolution?
The number?
It's 100 TAC 26.
Mhm.
I mean, it's basically just not printed, right?
Right.
Can you send it out in email? Or we can just review it?
Like, tomorrow?
No.
Like, it's not written out.
Oh.
Or if we run it
Not
out.
only not printed, it's not written.
I mean,
Like, there's the sample of it, but nothing in,
Gotcha.
like,
Yeah.
Whereas
in the
therefore,
spots.
right,
Cause we don't even have all of the quotes and stuff.
right. Yeah, I mean, cost estimates and everything like that.
We gotta have it.
Yeah.
Like by a certain time or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she said
31st.
April 30th.
They'll do the 30th.
Cause I already started the application, but I just went through the easy
Right,
stuff.
because you can go, the application's on Survey 123, it's online. So like, for Brenda to do it, it saves her changes every time. So like, she can go through, do some stuff, close out, do some stuff, close out, and it'll save everything.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, I mean, part of me is like, just go through and kind of be like a pay request, you know, that you may not have back, that's signed, make it contingent upon council approval.
Right, like who's the land and water committee, so we
Can
can say, you
we
know,
send
pending
this to
review.
committee?
Right,
Hmm?
contingent
send this?
upon the park committee.
It would be park is appropriate, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Sorry. Laughing over here.
Okay. Floor is yours, Cedric.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot, just the phase 2B pay request. It is a quite large one, although they've made a significant amount of progress throughout the last 2.5 weeks, I'll say. So we did review everything. There is a little bit of carryover from last year. There was a pay request that we were gonna put together at the end of last year. Dollar wise, it didn't amount to very much, and Prunty was fine, just kind of not going through the application process, holding that, and then updating it this year. So pay request 6 total, and this does include change order 1. Now, the approval would be contingent on Danner approval of this pay request and Danner approval of change order number 1. So, but the amount on this pay request is $566,182.93. And again, that would be the council approval contingent on Danner approval of the pay request and change order.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Jeremy, second by Austin. Any further discussion on pay request 6 in the amount of $566,182.93? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That again was pending approval by Deanna.
And that leaves, I don't remember what's on the letter, exactly about 1.9 million left as far as the remaining balance on the contract, so. Just a quick update, you might have noticed there was no crews up north today, they're just waiting for a back T sample, should have that in the morning, then 1 crew will be back up there on Wednesday finishing services. Today they had 20-some guys on Lake Avenue, so 6 or 7 excavators going, so it was quite a.
It was quite the show.
1 crew per block is what it was today. So that'll be the same thing tomorrow. They're trying to get, with the potential for the cooler weather again this weekend, they're gonna try to get everybody who's on temp water, so everybody on lake. And then there's 3 up north on Bowman that are on temp water. They're gonna try to get everybody off of temp water before Friday. So that way over the weekend, if it does get below freezing, they don't have to come in.
Freezing last.
Yeah, they probably had a couple guys come over on Saturday. Everybody up on the north side of town froze on their temp water, so they had to come and hook all the hoses, warm them up, hook them all back up. So, but our hope is to get everybody off by the end of the week.
They'll be all done before most people get started.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it honestly, schedule-wise, it worked out pretty good. Rounds is planning to come in hopefully the end of this week, depending on how far they can get on services. If not the end of this week, Monday next week is what it sounds like. We'll find out more tomorrow. We have a progress meeting tomorrow morning, so.
And they'll do all the road.
Yep, it sounds like they'll probably Rounds will bring 2 crews in as well. They'll have a crew down here working on Lake 2nd Street between Fremont and Lake, and then they may even start the removals on 2nd Street between Fremont and Spring. So try to get that stuff done and get soil cement in so they can get the concrete guys in here as quick as they can. So
Sweet.
tentative schedule is they're done before July 4th. So that's kind of what they've indicated. We'll see. I mean, if all goes well, I think they can meet it, but just depends on how.
Mother
the rest of
Nature.
April and-
Yeah, Mother Nature can really throw a wrinkle in things.
Guess any questions on 2B?
No?
The only thing I'll say on 2A, just a little bit of a schedule update. So Valley Fiber's getting one of their boxes /adjusted so we can finish the grading work in the ditch. And then MediaCom is also going to get their box moved. When Rounds does come to town, they're gonna have some guys get down there to the Park Avenue ditch, Jan Mobley's, and then Brian's house. Get all that shaped up. And then they're gonna bring the seeders in and try to get
Okay.
that stuff all seeded. And then at that time, we'll kind of see, there's grass starting to come up on Fremont. But we'll see what it looks like when the seeders come in, if there's anywhere where they need to jump back up in with the tractor, drill some additional seed, hand broadcast some, that sort of thing. Will take care of that seeding stuff on Fremont at that time.
Okay. And when is your best?
I would say they were hoping within like the next 2 weeks so that they can catch the spring window.
Yeah.
Get stuff planted that way, if, hopefully have some grass coming up yet this spring and not having to wait till the fall.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Anything else?
With what Todd just said, does that throw much of a wrench in anything of the Otter Tail building?
No, I mean, it would, it's a difficult lot to serve
Mm-hmm.
either.
Yeah.
Brian and I have talked a little bit about it, whether if a sewer main is installed, and I'll say by the developer for right now, whether it's developer, Otter Tail, whoever, right? If there is an actual 8-inch sewer main that is installed, that would have to be inside of some sort of permanent utility easement. Now, in order to run that sewer straight out to Otter Tail, you would be crossing through the 21st Century lot. So you'd have to get a signature from 21st Century giving, at that point, it would be an easement with the city, because the city would maintain that easement. That would be where the city's utility would be located. And so, I don't know, 900 feet to run a 4-inch line is a long ways.
No other way to route that? Or is that
Not-
just the shortest path or?
I mean, basically what we did was there's a manhole that's kind of all Industrial Boulevard, but on the southwest corner of Industrial Boulevard, or of the U, so to speak, there's a manhole in that corner. And we did have our surveyors, when they were over here, pop that manhole, get some depths. We ran some calcs on what it would take to maintain 6 foot of cover on that sewer pipe going out there. 4 inches is pretty tight. I mean, that minimum grade is 1% on that. So, I mean, over 900 feet, you gain quite a bit of elevation. There would be the potential to go to like a 6-inch service. Now, the problem with that is if they only have a bathroom, then your cleaning velocities are basically none. Basically, your water is going to outrun your solids, and eventually you'll end up with some issues. Now, if it's just a service line, the one thing Brian and I talked about was, there could be a clean out at the right of way line. And if there was an issue, the city could clean out from that clean out to the main, but that's it. Now, I don't remember, I think the ordinance on sewer services is the property owner's responsibility from the house to the main.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Water's to the curb stop.
Yeah.
So that's where it's kind of hard to draw that line, like what's a main versus what's a service. In my opinion, a main would be anything 8-inch and larger. A service would be a 4 or 6-inch line. So I don't know. I think there's some discussion that needs to be had on what Otter Tail wants to do. I mean, from what I know, it's just a bathroom out there is all they want. Maybe probably a floor drain in the shop, for some whatever off of vehicles. But again, you're not talking a lot of water usage there to keep that line clean, have those cleaning velocities in that service.
Right.
So the easiest path is the one that's straight there. The problem is it's through their neighbor adjacent property that an easement would have to be required to go.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know how you'd serve it any differently. I'm trying to remember. I think at one point the layout had like a cul-de-sac kind of going back up that direction. It's been so long since.
On that corner. Well, because of the odd shape of that piece, you really can't do.
Right.
So the lot that's not owned is that slough. So you'd have to go south and then come around.
Right, if you wanted to go around 21st.
Yep.
And then you're just talking
More feet.
more dollars, more feet.
Yeah.
One thing that they could do is put some sort of lift pump or grinder pump in, to help assist, pushing the water and the solids down the surface.
Is that like a high pressure sewer line? Isn't there such a thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a force main to an extent, but again, with minimal amount of water usage,
Mhm.
it's
It's a
still
big
gonna be-
expense for going to the bathroom once a day.
Yeah. It'd be cheaper to put porta potty up probably. and have
Yeah.
it
Right,
clean it up.
well,
Well, that's the first thing that popped in my
Could they
mind.
put in a sealed, when he
Yeah.
was talking, a
when he
sealed,
was talking about the
and
sealed
then
mound.
when they do get that developed down in there, can they just tag on?
That's maybe where I'll say that's more of a city decision.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think as long as, and Todd kind of alluded to it, as long as they're complying with the ordinances
Yeah,
that the city has, then it would ultimately fall on the city to make the decision. What Brian and I talked about was just if they were going to connect to the city's sewer, how does that look? And that's where, it might be 450 or 500 feet of 8-inch line with a dead end manhole that they can tie into that manhole. But then that 400 or 500 feet with just one service on there is going to take a lot of maintenance on the city's end. Very similar to, to be honest, Brian's gonna have that up on the north side of town where they're working right now.
right,
It's only, I think there's maybe 8 users up there. That's just not a lot of water pushing everything downstream. So he might have to go take a fire truck up to those manholes that are the dead end ones every spring and fall and flush that line out, just because there's not enough water usage. So, which would be the same thing out there.
right.
Normally where you see all that stuff pile up would be in the manhole. So,
Okay.
I'd probably push everything slowly down to the manhole and then Brian would be stuck cleaning out a manhole,
I'm sure that'd make his day.
Yeah, it's fun. I've seen some pretty bad ones.
Yeah,
So,
which makes it look like the sealed mound maybe wouldn't be such a bad option
Yeah,
for them to
and-
have.
and again, I don't, if it's in the city ordinances, the one thing that the city may want to request is, a design or a shop drawing, as we call them, of the actual structure, so that you can have somebody review it, ensure it's fully sealed, you know what I mean?
Well, then you can have an intelligent conversation about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, that way, if, John down the road wants to do the same thing and, he knows that they didn't put in exactly what the city ordinances say, they're gonna try to do it and say, well, you allow,
Yep.
so I think,
You let one, you gotta let them all, so.
yeah,
yeah. Well, even as I interpreted it, because it is beyond that 400
mhm,
feet, the city cannot force it.
right,
So then I guess that means you have to have options if the city
Mhm.
cannot mandate.
right,
So then what will the city allow?
yeah,
So, yeah,
Yeah.
because we don't want someone just willy-nilly
right.
doing.
Cause I think
something.
what the city's ordinances are trying to get away from is the old school septic with a drain
Right.
field type of system.
Yeah.
Right.
You guys obviously don't want that.
No.
A sealed, structure where they come in, one bathroom, should they maybe pump it out once a month, So, depending how big of a tank they put in it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I think as long as it's compliant with the ordinances, and it would be no different than if, I think of like somebody that built on the south end on Frank Birchhouse Field along 209. How would the city serve them?
Right.
There is sewer through that field, but the elevations probably aren't gonna work especially closer to 209, because that really drops off. So, you would maybe have a similar situation there as well.
Yeah.
So, but
Any other questions? Right, thank you.
yes,
All right, we have resolution 100, TAC 26 for land and water grant. Brenda is still waiting some final numbers, and we'll have that ready. So knowing that, when those numbers are ready, you will send it on to the park committee. Brenda, do you want to give a brief explanation of what that is?
So like our plan is to include the pool slide, and we're thinking around 14,000 is what we'll have money for it. And then it's a 50/50. So just think of the next 14,000, add some of that to the slide, because they're extremely expensive. And then we also looked into some like younger playground equipment for like 3-year-old.
Right, it's for, yeah, like
Yeah.
something,
Mhm.
small
So I'm
slides.
still waiting on those prices too.
Sure.
And then Brian got a price for the fence at the baseball field. What all was there?
I thought the fence was replaced here a couple of years ago. What's with the fence?
Last year we got I don't know.
Like the
that
back.
green
Tall
Yeah.
fence.
Oh, yeah, I know we did
portion
that.
done.
Yeah.
Now we're moving on to the 6-foot portion.
Oh, I thought that was done already. It's hasn't, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We bite off the parts we can afford.
Right.
Okay.
And then, let's see, probably those are
The
there.
agri line.
Oh, yeah, we have the funds for AgriLine, the dirt out on the baseball field. So that's around maybe 6,000-7,000. I don't think he's heard back from that number yet, but you know, it's a 50/50. So like that, we could put towards fixing the dugouts or like getting a new water fountain over there so that kids can fill their water bottles. So, and I did talk to the state and like, you know how all of our stuff is, and pool cement.
Yep.
You know how Bob has been slowly fixing, you know, so that's included in there too.
And this was all based off of what you guys budgeted for 26, right?
Mhm.
If I remember right, that's what we
Already
sat down and.
Pre-budgeted money, so we'll just
Yeah,
we'll get twice as much done on the same money.
right. So I did talk to the gal and like some of the projects in the pool area, baseball field, park.
Mhm.
And she said that it's all one big area, so it would work.
Okay.
And that was the only question we had was,
Right.
with all these separate little things, would they all work as one project? Because otherwise it's hard to do this application, you know,
You need-
you can only do one at a time.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think because it was all one city park, essentially city entity, they're all public facilities, that's really what they look for is.
Nice.
It can't be, this grant can't be anything private.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you for the explanation. With that, does anyone have any questions for Brent or Cedric about that? So with the understanding that it will be officially reviewed by the park committee, is there a motion to approve resolution 100 TAC 26?
So moved. I'll second. Oh, great.
Yeah, John hasn't made it yet, so.
Yeah, we'll let him take.
We have a
Now
motion
he and I
by,
are both official.
yeah, we have a motion by, a second by John. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. All right.
That was much shorter.
Little less stuff to cover too. Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when they poured the concrete for my sidewalk?
Last year.
Yeah. They filled a crack in my sidewalk,
Okay,
like 2 months after it was poured.
okay.
And I've been looking and there's not another, I wouldn't say not another sidewalk. The same. But I told Brian about it right away.
Okay. Yeah, we can take a look at it.
He told me concrete gets hard and concrete cracks. I was like, within 2 months?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I can take a
So
look
I've
at
been
it.
looking at all the other sidewalks, not close, but it doesn't appear that any of them are.
Okay, yeah, I can take a look at it. I'll actually be here for Landon tomorrow, so, okay, I can take a look at it tomorrow. So. And we haven't done a formal punch list or anything on the project. When the concrete guys do come back, asphalt guys come back, there's some things that we sent out last year that they need to address, that we're trying to get addressed so they can be addressed prior to us doing a punch list. So I know like when the concrete guys come back, they're gonna work on Daly,
Yes.
Daly's driveway. And then there's a few other areas of concrete that they got to address as well. And then same thing with the asphalt. It paved in the rain and
Mhm.
so they got there will be asphalt that gets milled out of Fremont.
Oh,
Basically from 3rd to 4th on the west lane, halfway all the way, or no, north, so. But,
thank you.
yes,
Any pieces of paper?
Yeah. Concerns.
Okay.
Very.
Brenda's concerns didn't fit on one page.
Well, it's.
That's concerning.
Surprising.
So.
Oh, that was the email you
Yeah.
sent? Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
I
yeah, yeah.
didn't email you guys.
Oh, okay. I
You
was like, I feel bad. I felt like the email was a little
'Cause,
thin, so.
The personnel committee.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then we do have one application that you might wanna
Get into
go into, yeah,
Okay.
that's all.
Okay, so that's just for our records and perusing. Okay. Anything else on employee concerns? Okay, council concerns, Jeremy. Joe?
Brian was over filling by the elevator. I was gonna mention that. Don't seem like they keep the holes fixed, so then it goes out into the street. But you gotta fill with gravel, but on the east side of the same street, there's a big pothole that just needs to be addressed. Well, like so big. And then
Where is it?
across from the elevator, probably kind of right just west of the apartments. There's still one pothole over in the northbound lane, not southbound.
In the new pavement?
No, in that stuff by the elevator that they poured years ago.
Yeah, they didn't do that. Just north
Hmm.
Yeah,
from.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it comes down, well, up to the shop.
And it stops there, okay.
Yep.
I guess
That's
that,
where the new stuff stopped.
And then it
so from the elevator towards the highway, that's still the old
Yep,
pothole there needs some.
yeah, there's one that he got all the other ones. And, where the elevator, they'll get a pothole alongside the blacktop.
Yep.
Mhm.
And it doesn't get addressed, and then it starts
Works out, yep.
undermining
Yeah.
all the rest of the blacktop, and it keeps breaking out farther and farther and farther, so he went and fixed all the stuff in the blacktop as far as put some gravel in, but there's one hole there that's definitely noticeable when you hit it with first out.
Thank you.
Other than that, that's,
Nothing in a week?
Nothing.
Did you get to talk to Brad about the pool pass thing?
Yes,
And that's,
and he's already dropped off a check.
okay. And then the roll-offs are coming the 24th.
Yeah, Friday.
That's all I got then.
What'd they end up doing for the pool passes then?
Was it the 15?
So we're gonna do the single for $30 and the couple for $40. And then any kids free. You guys had said the 1,500, and he brought the check.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. I don't. Is there a motion to go? Oh,
We do?
I waved her off.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear it.
We didn't see it.
I saw
Shake of his
him.
head.
I wasn't vocal. Go like this.
Yeah.
Wiggle his hat.
Safe on second.
Yeah.
All right, I understand there may be a
I'll
motion
call
to
for
go.
executive session for personnel.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, motion by John, second by Austin. We are in executive at 8:10 for personnel. had to hold it hard for a while.